and welcome back to Story Stash. I'm your host Duncan, and these are some of my stories I've written. Before I continue with Chapter 6, I thought I'd mention there's an ebook version of this story, and it's available on bookapee.com. And look for Duncan Stickings, and you'll find my books there. Okay, back to... Today I'm reading from my book Ghost Whisperer, and this is Chapter 6, so let's get started. Chapter 6. The next day, Ed returned to work, arriving early. He checked in with his boss before diving into work on bug fixes. Ed sat in his cubicle all day, putting in a solid day of work. He was relieved no ghosts arrived. It was a welcome rest from recent days. At a respectable time, Ed closed his computer and stood. "Good night, Blake," he said over the cubicle wall to his co-worker. "Good night, Ed," came the reply. Ed walked outside the building. He kept alert for possible attackers as he rushed to his car. Fortunately, the walk was uneventful, and he drove off. Soon he parked at his apartment building and took the elevator to his floor. He entered his apartment. Ed expected a ghost to appear in his living room, but none did. He had a normal day. He read his book until he felt tired, then he went to bed. It was a relief not sneaking out searching for bodies in the darkness or running from foreign agents. Meanwhile, one of the foreign agents had escaped capture. He saw all his colleagues arrested and hid in a closet. He waited until everyone left before stepping out of the closet and leaving. Later, he tried to call his contact in Langley. The number was out of service. This was when he realized he was alone. He called his contact in Moscow. After exchanging passphrases, he reported the situation. "Stay hidden. We'll send reinforcements. They'll arrive in 2 days," said the contact in Russian. After he got the arrival information, he hung up the phone. He'd better be ready for when they arrive. 2 days later, Ed received a visit from a ghost. Ed sat reading in his living room when Sara appeared. He put his book to one side and looked at her. "Ed, I have good news. The task force caught the serial killer." "Good evening. I'm glad for you. Will you be moving on then?" "I'm not going anywhere yet. I have a surprise for you," she said. Sara gestured to someone Ed couldn't see. A moment later, several ghosts arrived, most floating out of the walls. They all stopped in front of the sofa facing Ed. The temperature in the room dropped noticeably. "I wanted you to see this. We're all victims of that serial killer. We're all dead because of him. He is in police custody, thanks to your help." Ed was struck dumb. The magnitude of this was too much. Each of the ghosts floated in front of him, looking at him. "Because of you, his killing has ended. These souls will find peace." Ed looked at Sara. "Can you really find peace? Justice, perhaps. But peace?" he asked. Sara shrugged. The other ghosts faded out or floated through a wall, leaving Sara remaining. "Thank you for showing me that," said Ed. "It took some effort to round them up," she said, grinning. "A ghost roundup. Now I've seen everything." "Ed, I've decided I want to stick around. I want to track down killers. With your help, I can achieve much more than I did as a detective." "I helped you catch your killer, but I already have a life and a job that I enjoy. That sounds like a full-time job." "It's very important. We can take dangerous killers off the streets." "It's not my job. I helped you once. I helped find Ian's killer. I didn't plan on a career change." You didn't plan on it, but you have a unique talent. Remember Spider-Man? With great power comes great responsibility. Besides, I can handle most of the investigation. I just need you to pass on leads." "I'm not interested in doing that. Tomorrow I'm going to work, to my regular job." Ed picked up his book and started reading, ignoring her. He missed the look of disapproval on Sarah's face. A few minutes later, she disappeared. The next morning, Ed awoke. He went through his morning routine with no disruption from ghosts. The rain was heavy as he drove to work. Ed arrived at work and hurried to his cubicle. He pulled up the next bug fix and began. The day went quickly, fixing several bug fixes and sending a new release to QA for retesting. Ed enjoyed the satisfaction that progress brought. That evening, he got home and returned to his book. The hero was rescuing folks before they got consumed by a black hole. An hour later, a visitor disturbed his reading. The ghost of a young girl materialized in front of him. Ed peered over the top of his book. He'd almost had a whole day without a ghostly visitor. This one stood, looking at the floor. "And your name is?" asked Ed. "Lucy," she said. It was barely a whisper. "Did Sara send you here?" She looked at the floor, then shook her head. Ed set his book on the sofa. He could talk with adults, but a child? He had little experience with children. "Lucy, you came here for my help?" She nodded her head. "Let me guess, you were murdered and you want me to help you get justice." She peered at him through her bangs. Ed waited. He wondered if Sara could help coax her story out of her. He still didn't trust that Sara hadn't sent her. "Sara, are you somewhere nearby? I need your help," said Ed. Lucy stood in front of him, looking at her feet. Ed waited for a response, hoping Sara would appear. When she didn't, he finally continued. "Lucy, if I'm to help you, I need more information." Lucy stared at Ed for a minute, then something changed. She floated forwards. Ed sat motionless, unsure what to do. Before he could ask, she reached out her hand and touched Ed's shoulder. The next moment, Ed was somewhere different. He sat on a bed reading a book, only he wasn't Ed anymore. He was Lucy. Her bedroom door opened and a man entered. His hair was dark and cut short, but his face was blurred. Ed immediately felt terror, and he had an urgent need to escape. The man spoke, but Ed heard nothing. Fear paralyzed him and blocked out his senses. Ed couldn't move as the man closed the door and approached him. His malevolence was tangible and overwhelming, but Ed felt frozen. He just sat there, knowing not to argue or move. Ed felt a huge hand stroking his hair. He wanted to scream. Then the huge hand pushed him backwards, and he felt the weight of the enormous man on top of him, smothering him. He couldn't breathe. As his life was ending, he tried to push back in vain at his assailant. Panic consumed his thoughts. Soon everything went dark. Ed opened his eyes, still seated on the sofa and facing Lucy. He had a cold sweat and his heart beat rapidly. "Wow, I didn't realize you could do that," said Ed. Lucy looked at her feet. "I'm really sorry for you. That man is a monster. He shouldn't have done that." She looked at him through her bangs. "I understand what happened. I must know where he is and where he hid your body. Then I need evidence to show he killed you." She shrugged but said nothing. Ed sighed. "He can't hurt you anymore. I need more information. I don't know where you lived. I don't know the murderer. Without that, I can't help you." Lucy looked at her feet. "We could go for a drive. Can you show me where your home is?" he asked. A minute passed. She nodded. They left the apartment and went to his car. He got in his car and Lucy floated through the car door and sat in the passenger seat. He looked at her hands in her lap. "When I reach the street, I'm going to need some directions," said Ed. As Ed pulled out of the underground parking, he paused and looked at Lucy. She lifted her hand and pointed to the right. Ed turned right. A few blocks later, she pointed left. He took a left turn. It continued this way for about half an hour. Ed made it to a residential street in a middle-class area. "Are we getting close?" asked Ed. She briefly nodded. Ed pulled over and parked outside a small two-level home. "Was this your home?" he asked. She nodded. Ed made a note of the address. "Does that man live here?" She shook her head. "Is your body anywhere near here?" She shrugged. "Lucy, it's getting late. I need to return home to sleep. We can continue tomorrow." She peered at him through her bangs. He smiled and started the car. Half an hour later, he pulled into his apartment complex. "Lucy, thank you for trusting me. I'll see you tomorrow." She vanished. Ed returned to his apartment and got ready for bed. At the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, the foreign agent waited in the arrivals lounge. A flight from Amsterdam landed, and passengers streamed through the greeting area. Two burly men approached the foreign agent, recognizing his face. He nodded, and they left together for his car in the parkade. Once they were in his car and leaving the airport, one man spoke. "I understand you had abducted someone before everything went south." "Da, he is called Ed Tanner. He escaped and turned the CIA on us. He is clearly an agent." "We must capture him and discover what happened. Plus, this cannot go unpunished. There has to be retribution." "Agreed. I have a new safe house where we can make our plans." The next morning, Ed awoke and did his usual routine and drove to work. The weather was overcast and he made it to work without incident. Ed had a day job and he was glad Lucy hadn't returned yet. He worked until midday. As he sat in his cubicle, a ghost appeared near him. He recognized this one. It was Connor Price, the former CIA agent. Ed smiled and stood and walked towards the washrooms. He passed the washrooms and ducked into the janitor's closet and shut the door. The ghost arrived a moment later. "Hello again," said Ed. "Hello, Ed. I need some help again. You still have the business card for Noah Johnson, the case officer?" asked Connor. "Yes. Why?" "Well, I need you to give him a message." "You realize you're retired?" asked Ed. "Since last time I've kept tabs on some persons of interest. This is the ultimate in surveillance. I want to pass on the intel." "And that's where I come in?" "Exactly." "Okay, we'll go back to my cubicle and you can tell me the message. Then we'll use the phone in the meeting room to call Noah." Agreed. Back at the cubicle, Ed wrote the details down. Then they went into the meeting room. Ed called the number. "Noah Johnson? This is Ed Tanner. If you are Ed Tanner, what is the code you used before?" "Diamond 940. I have some intel for you." "Not on an open phone line. Can you meet me in my office?" "Sure, but I'll need a doctor's note for the appointment," said Ed. "Of course. See you in 45 minutes. The phone call ended. Ed turned to Connor. "Looks like I'm going for a doctor appointment. Could you accompany me, as I have something I'd like to ask you about after?" "Of course," said Connor. Soon they left the office. Ed arrived at the Office of U.S. Public Affairs. The receptionist recognized him and escorted him through the security checkpoint and to the meeting room. After a few minutes, Noah Johnson arrived. "Mr. Tanner, I thought I'd seen the last of you," he said. "Me too, but I came across something that may interest you," said Ed. Noah gestured for Ed to continue. Ed shared the information Connor had provided him. "That's interesting. How do you rate the source of the intel?" "Inform him the rating is level A, as in reliable. You cannot say more without risking the source." "Sir, the rating is level A, as in reliable. I can't say more without risking the source." "I have to verify this intel at once and take immediate action. Please wait here. I'll be a few minutes," said Noah. "Of course." Noah left the room. Noah returned sooner than Ed expected. "Your intel was good. Once again, I'm in your debt," he said. "You're welcome. I was glad to help. Here's your doctor's note. I'll escort you out." Noah handed a note to Ed. Ed was certain it would be more than enough for his employer. They left the meeting room, and he walked Ed back to the reception area. Connor floated along nearby. "Mr. Tanner, if you need a follow-up appointment, do contact me." Noah shook his hand and left him. Ed looked confused. "He means if you have new intel," said Connor. "Oh," said Ed. Ed returned to his car with Connor in tow. On the drive home, Ed shared his current predicament with Connor. "The other night, the ghost of a 12-year-old girl visited me. Some man murdered her. I thought I'd ask you for your advice," said Ed. "What intel do you have?" "I don't know how she died. I don't have the identity of the killer. She showed me where she used to live. She doesn't know where her body is. That's about it." "It's not actionable. As you don't know the killer, knowing the location of the body would be a big help too." "And if we discover the identity of the killer, I can't share this with the cops." "You can use some of that money I gave you to hire a hitman." "That won't work for me. I'm not a killer." "Noah owes you a favor. If you had the identity of the killer, I'm sure he could help you." "That sounds better than a hitman." "The outcome is the same. You take a killer off the street. If you don't do something, he'll kill again." "Lucy is likely to turn up at my apartment this evening. Would you hang around and help me talk with her?" asked Ed. "Sure. Our objective is to identify the killer. Once we have that, I can observe him. Perhaps I can get some useful intel." "Awesome." Ed pulled into the underground parking lot and they went up to his apartment. It wasn't long before Lucy arrived. It startled her to see Connor in the living room. "Lucy, this is a friend of mine. He's here to help us. I'm sorry I couldn't warn you in advance. His name is Connor," said Ed. She looked at Ed through her bangs for a full minute before she nodded. "Connor used to work for the government before he died. I need his help, and yours, to get the information we need to help you." She glanced over at Connor, then back at her feet. "Lucy, I understand you were murdered, but we don't know who the murderer is. We don't know where your body is. We need this information before Ed can continue," said Connor. She looked up at Connor. About a minute later, she nodded. "Lucy, I can go with you and search for your murderer, and perhaps find your body. Then we can return and tell Ed. Is that okay with you?" Another minute of looking at her feet, then she shrugged. Ed looked at Connor and nodded. "Please come with me, Lucy," said Connor. The two ghosts left Ed's living room. Once again, things were beyond his control. He hoped they'd find answers. Later, Ed went to sleep. The next morning, Ed awoke. He proceeded through his morning routine with no ghosts. The weather was cold and overcast as he drove to work. The day passed quickly, fixing bugs. At noon he had lunch with Blake. They ate Vietnamese noodles at a pho restaurant. In the evening, Ed went home again. No ghosts in his car or his living room. He watched some TV before going to sleep. 2 more days passed until Connor arrived at his work. Ed got up and walked to the janitor's closet. "Ed, I'm sorry it took a while. Lucy was a tad skittish until I explained to her that the dead have nothing to fear from the living," said Connor. "You found something?" "You'll need to book another appointment with Dr. Noah. I've got the killer's name and the location of the body." "Oh, good. So you think he can help us?" "I don't want to talk to the police, and I'm not comfortable arranging for his death." "I understand your position, and I have a solution. You want him off the streets and locked away?" asked Connor. "Yes, not killed." "Let me share the intel with you, and then you can make a call." Back at his desk, Connor dictated to Ed. Then Ed went to the meeting room. Ed called the number. "Noah Johnson. This is Ed Tanner. I need a follow-up appointment. Code is Diamond 940, said Ed. "Understood. See you in about 45 minutes. The phone call ended. Ed turned to Connor. "Off we go." At the CIA office, the receptionist escorted him through to the usual meeting room. Soon, Noah Johnson arrived. "Mr. Tanner, you have some intel for me?" he asked. "Yes, but it's a little different. I'm hoping you can help me with this." "Why don't you tell me the intel, then I can decide." Ed detailed the evidence he had. The murder of a 12-year-old girl, Lucy Asher. The details of the murderer, who was her uncle. He provided detailed information on where to find the girl's body. "This is different from our usual line of work. If you'll leave it with me, I'll see what I can do." "Thank you, sir. I appreciate any help you can provide. First, we'll verify the intel. Can I contact you at work, or should I call your cell?" "My cell would be best, thank you." Noah handed him another doctor's note before escorting him out. Well, that's the end of Chapter 6. In the next episode, we have Chapter 7. Ed meets Brett, a ghost who needs some help. So, we'll see you then.